Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bicycling Lunch and Learn. This is a program put on by Bicycle Garage Indy, the Cycle Commuter Task Force, which is Bicycle Garage Indy, uh, Bike Indianapolis, Central Indiana Bicycling Association, and Commuter Connect. We put these on every month, the second Thursday of the month, and they're from 12 to 1. We also record them, so if you're not able to join us during the live portion, you can always view it later. And we have an archive of all of the Lunch and Learns on our Bicycling Lunch and Learn webpage that we've started recording them starting in 2021. So this is our 5th year of recording. So there's a lot of great programs that we've done in the past if you want to check those out. And uh, just a couple of things that are coming up on our calendar. Next week is the Active Transportation Meetup, which is on Thursday, the 19th, from 8 to 9 at Leviathan Bakehouse on 10th and College. So just come enjoy some pastries and talk with like-minded folks who like to get around by bike, walking, or transit. Then next month is going to be favorite technology that folks like to use on while riding their bikes. So if you have any favorite technology, go ahead and put those in the chat too, so we can make sure we cover those. Or if you have questions about technology, so that we can kind of tailor it to what people might be interested in. And with that, I think I'm done with the preamble announcements, and I'm going to turn this over to Tony Cherolis, who is going to talk about bike packing and his trips that he's done, as well as helpful hints in case you want to do that. And I'm going to turn off my video right now and audio and turn it over to Tony.
Awesome. Everybody can hear me, I hope, Connie. And I have the slides up on the screen, and I've got the chat open in a window on my other screen. So if you do have questions there, drop them in the chat. Or if you raise your hand, Connie might call on you. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Saturday, June 28th is the night ride. Which is a wonderful evening ride. Starts at 11 p.m. It actually finishes the next day on Sunday after midnight. It is a 20-mile ride, and it's in its 32nd year. So I'll drop a link to the chat in there at some point, or Tess might drop a night ride link there in the chat for you. If you're not interested in riding, we still also need volunteers and route guides. And route guides do get to ride the route if they want to. After the end of the ride goes by, they join the group. So hope to see folks at the night ride. And I will start the bike touring and bike camping presentation here. So I've done a lot of this. I got started in it. Maybe I tried to get started in 2007, but had a knee injury that disrupted my first long tour. So I didn't actually get to do my first long ride until 2010. And it was actually a move. So I was moving from Champaign-Urbana, Illinois to Hartford. So I shipped my stuff and rode my bike to meet it back in Hartford. So after that, I was somewhat addicted. Would try to do these, at that point, shorter couple week tours that I could work into some vacation. And then I started experimenting with longer ones after that. My longest was in 2022, is a somewhat of a sabbatical, and that's up on the screen right now. Wandered all around the Midwest, the East Coast, and down to Florida, and finished in New Orleans. That included a 2-week stay in Indianapolis, where I worked at Bicycle Garage Indy for 2 weeks. And part of the reason I'm here is I had so much fun during that 2 weeks. So rather than just talk about my trips, I want to give tips all the way through here. So where does one stay when they're bike camping? I do a lot of stealth camping or guerrilla camping, or in Europe, they call it wild camping. where you just tuck in somewhere unofficial, and just you're smart about it, so you're not, imposing on anyone. You're often folks don't even know you're there. I also camp in campgrounds, like state parks are great. Um, Sometimes you can even just go to the shower in a state park and camp somewhere out into the nether regions of a state park if you'd rather be further away from, generators and barking dogs and screaming kids. That's one really nice part about bike camping is you're not tied to places where cars can park, so you can actually get into nature. You're stay with family and friends when I'm traveling a lot, and friends of friends get referred sometimes. Warmshowers.com is a great resource. That one is a reciprocal hosting website where you sign up as a host where you live and host bike tourists as they pass through. And then as you're traveling, you reach out and let them know when you're going to be there, and they host you. And in a pinch, I stay at Airbnbs, bed and breakfasts, hotels, when I can't make any of the other lower cost, more fun ways work. I've hunkered down in Airbnbs or hotels when, on the East Coast, run into a hurricane or two. So usually the distances that I'm riding is around 60 miles per day. But it starts out a little shorter than that in my first week or so, where I'm still getting into shape because typically I haven't been doing a lot of training. And I work my way up to the higher mileage. And I always plan around at least one day off per week or a very low mileage day. People in the bike touring world will call it like a 0 day. Sometimes when I'm feeling motivated, I might skip a 0 day. So, but your body really likes to have that rest day once a week. Any questions or thoughts on camping and where people stay? Feel free to put them in the chat as we go. Let me go to the next slide here. I did a Southwest ride from New Orleans. I kind of picked up where I'd stopped and rode from New Orleans to Albuquerque. A lot of that was on the adventure cycling route, the Southern Tier route. And it was a whole lot of time in Texas. And I had to deal with dogs. So I think I mentioned that a little later in the presentation, so I won't give that away. The topic on this slide was what about weather? So, you can wait out storms in libraries, coffee shops, picnic shelters, under bridges. You're planning your clothes so that you have layers that can handle colder weather and also dry out when you need to. And it's just kind of smart to have a flexible schedule so that you can allow for rest days when there's nasty or dangerous weather. Having a tent that is storm capable, that you know how to set up correctly, with all the additional guy lines and such to keep it from folding over in a storm. It's no fun when your tent folds over in a storm. It's a very uncomfortable wet sleep. And if you're just doing a short trip, being flexible enough that you can shift it to another weekend. If you see that there's a whole bunch of thunderstorms coming through when you're trying to do 1 or 2 night trip is a good way to deal with weather, because weather, like anything outside, weather can definitely change your experience. It can also make it unsafe in certain situations. I've had nasty, scary experiences with lightning in very flat areas. Don't mess with lightning. In the flatlands, you are the tallest thing, and you're just a bag of water that wants to conduct electricity to the ground. So most recently, I did a 2-month, almost 2-month tour along the Pacific coast from Vancouver to Ventura, California. Almost all of that was on roads. I was talking to some folks this morning about bike touring in Europe and how it's just bike highways there. It's not that here in the United States. So when you're riding along the beautiful Pacific coast, unlike that image there, on the right and getting close to Ventura, California. Most of it's on the roads. So it's really important when you're bike touring to stay visible. I use front and rear strobe lights. I've got lots of reflective stickers on me and all my stuff. And I use bright bags and clothing just to do everything I can so cars have, almost a mile to see me. They don't get surprised when they come up on me. So I also use a mirror, and I use it a lot. So that's one that's one thing that I think I would recommend to anybody who's doing bike touring that includes riding on the roads, which is pretty much any bike touring in the US, unless you're doing a few like isolated corridors like the Gap and CNO or the Katy Trail. So. These are just some photos from recent, trips. Top left, you might recognize that for Indianapolis. I joined Bike Party while I was here in town in August of 2022. Bottom left is Northwest Massachusetts. That's the highest point. That's where cars would overheat. There used to be like a service station there for pouring water into old cars' radiators. And the middle center there is me on a paddleboard. It's my first paddleboarding experience. It was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. One of my Warm Showers hosts really was into paddleboarding on the Fort Wayne River and said, let's go paddleboarding. So I did. Their river is kind of like ours, and it gets sewagey when it rains. So I don't know that I would recommend that again to anyone. But it was a good first experience. I'm glad I did not fall in. On the right, I was just amazing sunset. That's up in northern Michigan. I ducked into like a car camping area in the middle of the week, and nobody was there. So I just didn't know how to reserve it, and nobody asked me for anything because it was kind of an informal campsite. So you get all these amazing pictures, you get all these amazing experiences. The stargazing is unbelievable in a lot of these rural areas. Like you get so far from things. And you run into strangers that really treat you well. You get a lot of, for me, I like foraging. So wild cherries, June berries, mulberries, and all the breweries I can handle. You get to understand property and private property a lot more intimately, and have some interactions with folks if you make the wrong call. It happens very rarely, usually when I'm trying to find a camp and I'm desperate, where it's not a great spot to tuck in. It's one thing I've never seen before, and I'm excited to see again on a camp, is I was so rural and the full moon came up and there was no light. So I actually saw like the moon shadow as the moon came up and lit up the valley that I was in Southeast Ohio. The very creative Cuban boats beached in the Keys were wild. And I dropped into, I think, a bread and puppet show in a city I was in. And I'd always wanted to catch one of those, and I finally did, just dropping in as a visitor. And just sharing stories with hosts is something I find amazing, part of the experience. And again, I'll recommend warmshowers.com as a reciprocal hosting website. They have an annual donation fee, but if you do it and you stay one night with somebody, it's covered the fee based on, hotel costs, even campground costs. So what do I carry? First thing I think about is you need a bike that's a little heavier duty, that has some wider tires. There are specific touring bikes, or you can use a hybrid bike or a mountain bike that's got smoother tires on it that are faster rolling. So that's what I ride. I ride a touring bike. It's like a heavy duty road bike. Of course, I carry a mini pump. Got 4 waterproof bags. They're called panniers on sturdy front and rear racks. Some people make it work with just 2 bags in the back if they're doing some lighter weight touring. I have quick dry clothing, a couple changes. I have handkerchiefs that are basically my towels and rags and everything. I like to have one pair of comfy sleepwear. that isn't necessarily technical clothing. It's just a comfy thing to sleep in. And I carry a pair of cycling shoes that clip in and a light pair of sandals. The sandals end up being my rain day riding shoes, just because once you get your shoes wet on a long tour, they take a long time to dry out and they get terrible. Helmet with lights on the front and back, front light on the handlebars. I have an extra rear light that I put on when it's really sketchy. And I wear safety glasses when I'm riding. Just upgraded those back to prescription glasses. And I've got a solar night light, a solar panel, and a battery pack. Of course, I carry my phone. I tend to do a little bit of remote work when I'm traveling. So I have a tablet computer, a Surface Pro, charging cables, and that connects, to the solar panel and battery pack so I don't run out. And then I have some lightweight camping equipment for cooking. And always I have instant coffee. You've got a couple questions popping up here. There's something about the must-have gear. I'll get into that a little bit more. And then do you pack food or just take groceries and restaurants along the way? I pack a little bit of food. Like I have like an emergency amount of food in a lunch bag, kind of always, just because when you're riding, you need to fuel. But as you go, and most of the places you're going are developed. So I stop at grocery stores, I stop at restaurants. When you stay with a warm showers host, a lot of the time they'll feed you breakfast and dinner and breakfast based on what their accommodations are for people they're hosting. So I don't carry a lot of food unless I'm in a remote area, and then I plan further ahead with my food and water. And I mentioned here that I've got a water filter with extra water bags for when I need to carry more water, especially because that does end up being a constraint sometimes. But I don't carry a ton of food. I may load up, every day or two. I also am not on like the $5 to $10 a day budget that some bike tourists try to handle, where they're just eating rice and beans. I kind of spoil myself on food, so I can get stuff every day or two. Whereas some bike tourists that are on a really tight budget will, buy a big bag of rice and a big bag of beans or a bag of potatoes that they boil and eat during the day. Like that's not me. That's a lot of food weight, but it does keep your costs down if you do it that way. So I do have that insulated lunch bag with 1 to 2 days of food usually in it. I carry a book. I like paper books. Get away from the electronics for a bit. I have a compact notebook, a pen, some stamps, a few postcards. I like to pick up postcards along the way and send them back out. Spare tubes, multi-tools, spare cables, spare spokes, some Gorilla tape and electrical tape wrapped around the frame. Patch kit. I actually carry 2. You never know. Can have a terrible day. Carry a few common Allen bolts and a chain quick link. Mentioned the water filter and extra bags. First aid kit. I've actually got a pretty solid first aid kit because if you crash, you don't crash light. Like it's, Band-Aids aren't critical, but gauze and medical tape and bigger injury stuff is when you really need it. I have a wide brim hat that I usually bring with me, sunscreen, bug spray. I carry a little incense because it confuses the mosquitoes. And I've got lightweight camping gear. So a sleeping bag liner, compact pillow, and I carry a foam bag. The air mattress, like lightweight air mattress, is actually packed lighter and smaller. But for long trips, I just don't find them reliable enough, especially if you're stealth camping and occasionally, run into raspberries and pricker vines when you're laying your bag down. So there's lots of ways to try touring that is easy. So there's credit card touring where you just kind of plan a route. And that includes hotels, cabins, Airbnbs, bed and breakfasts, where you carry less and spend more. You can do 1 or 2 night camping trips that are local or point-based, where you start somewhere and you only go out 1 day's right away to test out your equipment or just do a shorter trip. So for long, those are easy, right? So when you try to get into longer tours, I'd say the biggest challenge is the first week or two, where your bottom, your actual sit spots, and your core start getting really cranky about spending that much time in the riding position. The way to, you know, make a 1 to 2 week tour work and feel good is to put a lot of riding hours in ahead of time. It doesn't have to be loaded necessarily, but you just need to be on the bike a lot in like the month before a tour, so that your core strength and your sit bones and your sit spots are ready for it. Another way to try touring is to ride with friends or an organized tour group. Adventure Cycling Association is one of the common ones. I think Damon Richards has been involved with him in the past as a leader. I have not led tours with Adventure Cycling, but I've used their routes. They have a lot of route resource information on that website as well, which is invaluable, including the GPS files, so you don't have to plan routes from scratch. Learning from others and reading online, if you like to read about people's adventures and experiences and best practices and, oh my God, don't do this. Or if you're reading about a specific route you're doing and you want to get people's tips on it, Crazy Guy on a Bike is a good resource, and it is crazy. Like anybody can submit stuff to it. So there's all sorts of fun blog posts and adventure logs and on that resource. You can also do day rides from a central campsite, where it's kind of like a car camping trip with day rides where you just go out and back and do loops. So that's one way to do bike and camp riding that is not carrying all your stuff. And I do have to say the best week-long ride is Pittsburgh to Cumberland, Maryland to DC on the Gap and C&O Trail. That is a superb US route. And there are small trail towns along the entire thing. There's free camping along the entire route, or you could even credit card tour it or do a hybrid where you do some of both. I know a few folks that have done it that might be on this call. I think Jim has done it. And everybody I hear from, it's amazing, their experience. I've done it, I think, 6 times now. There's a couple other ones in the US, but that is, I'd say, the best. There are groups that are like intentionally inclusive around bike touring. Radical Adventure Riders is one of them. I don't think there's a Radical Adventure Riders chapter here, but there was in New Haven, where I was before here. Some other easy to try touring. When I was first here in Indiana, I had a friend visit me from out of town and wanted to do a short trip. So we planned a multi-day 3-night camp. I think we planned it as a 4-night camp, but had a really good 4th day with a tailwind. So we just finished all the way home. So this is the loop that we did from Indianapolis up to the end of the Monon and Sheridan, bunch of rural roads until we hit the Nickel Plate Trail in Kokomo in Peru. We stealth camped off the Nickel Plate Trail. We rode over to the Misinawa Reservoir, and we stealth camped there off one of the small trails into the reservoir. And then near Muncie, we stayed at a hip camp, which is another camping option if you're having trouble finding a stealth camp or a campground. Some other ones here. There's a White River Campground. Is just a 35-mile ride from here. I'm actually going to lead a small group out there on August 2nd. So we'll send you information about that if you're curious or interested. That'll be a 35-mile out and back, most of it on rail trails. It's not a far camp ride to bike and camp in Morgan Monroe State Forest and Brown County State Park and a lot of the wilderness areas down there. The challenge there is riding south out of Indianapolis. You almost want to start south of the Indianapolis sprawl to get there. It's just not a pleasant ride through the south side suburban sprawl at this point, having done it. Ohio to Erie Trail, I think Jim just did that one. Oh, sorry, Ohio to Erie is different. So he did the Erie Canal Trail, which is Albany to Buffalo. Ohio to Erie is a 4 to 6 day ride from Cincinnati to Cleveland, and most of that is on trails now. And the parts that aren't on trails are in rural Amish areas where you're just riding bikes with people that are in horse carriages. And the Katy Trail across Missouri is another wonderful, like 300-ish mile route across the state of Missouri. And then there are all the European options where there's bike routes everywhere. Any questions so far while I get a drink of water? Or any routes that you know of that I forgot to mention that are just amazing US routes?
Is the ride in August co-ed or what's that like?
The ride in August is.
Cool.
It is a slow social roll, and it'll be whatever pace we go. And it will be along a route. So if we do end up, somebody wants to go fast and get there ahead of the group, they can do that. But we'll be staying, on a very trail focused route that we'll share ahead of time. And I'll try to keep, at least the back of the group riding together and let the fast folks, if they want to, take off. Place to watch for the August trip. Connie's got everybody's email that registered for this Lunch and Learn. So I will ask Connie for that, and we'll announce that trip in an email. We'll also put it in the June 16th newsletter for Bike Indianapolis and CIBA, which is now Central Indiana Cycling, everybody. That is our new name. All right. And I'll jump into safety considerations. Cars and trucks are your biggest safety concern. Plan your route to avoid high-speed, high-traffic roads. Multi-use trails, rail trails, and routes with wide shoulders with rumble strips that separate the traffic from you, or even better. Use your daytime strobe lights when you're on the streets, like almost anytime you're on the streets. Use front and rear strobe lights. The best plan is to avoid those busy, stressful roads, but sometimes you just can't. So increasing your visibility and having those strobe lights is important as part of your setup. Dogs, they're like sprinting on your bike when you have like 40 pounds of gear in bags is not fast. Like, you're not going to do a great job at sprinting away from dogs. What I found to be the most effective is to spray them in the face with my water bottle while I tell them they're doing their best, so that they're kind of confused by the messaging. They're either confused, they hate it, or they love it. But I've never had a dog issue to go past the spray them in the face with a water bottle. One particularly hard charging pit bull, I had to spray him twice, and then he realized he was outside his zone and turned around. Other folks use noise devices. I would not recommend any sort of like bear spray or pepper spray, because that's going to come back on you. But water bottle in the face is my best dog option. And if you know there's a dog, it's easier just to avoid it if it's on a route that you do commonly. Camping, don't stealth camp in cities. That's just a common one. If you see people camping, get off the couch. I like that. Yeah, I mean, some folks like to use a command voice with a dog. That's another thing that if they have an owner that uses a command voice with them, sometimes if you're comfortable using a command voice, they may respond to that. Some dogs don't, because you're not their owner. Some may respond more aggressively to a command voice that is not their person. But the water bottle is the key, I think, for me. And if you see someone camping and you're anywhere near a city, don't camp there. If somebody is like utility or economic camping, that is not a great place to camp. And if you're nervous about bike camping, you can do it with a group or a friend, just to make sure you're not solo. In general, I stay away from, when I'm stealth camping, I'm doing it in a way that nobody even knows I'm there. So the bigger danger for that is having a tree fall on me while I'm sleeping. So I just look up when I'm camping, make sure there's no big dead branches over top of your tent, and send your GPS location to your trusted friend. When I'm traveling on big trips, I usually have my phone or a satellite device pinging my route, so I have somebody that knows where I am at all points in case I stop moving. Have your good first aid kit. It's not just Band-Aids. You need like gauze. If you go down, road rash is not a Band-Aid. And know what poison ivy looks like. I don't get poison ivy, so I'm extremely lucky, but it's not something you want to get while you're bike touring or squatting in the woods to go to the bathroom. And make sure folks know where you are. So I share a GPS location. If you're going very rural, it's good to have a satellite tracker option. Those you can get monthly memberships on a plan. Yeah, so this is actually August 2nd. We were going to do July 26th, but we had a lot of these folks that are involved here that said that one won't work. They were out of town. So this is August 2nd to 3rd. This is the ride that we're proposing up to the White River Campground, starting from downtown-ish. The parking lot near North Math Boulder definitely allows for overnight parking. I see some like dirtbag van folks use that lot. So we could probably, if people want to leave a vehicle there, they could, or they could meet there on their bikes, and we can ride north to the White River Campground. I just got 2 primitive spots there, which can hold 5 to 10 people. So they're right next to each other in the White River Campground. Here's a photograph of that area. And does anyone have any questions? So the photo you're looking at there is you may be familiar with cottonwood trees here, dropping all the fluff that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. But this is a cottonwood grove next to the Sandy Rio Grande in New Mexico. Lots of the Rio Grande had no water in it at all as I was riding along it in the Texas and New Mexico area. And the only places there were trees were in those floodplains where the roots were close enough to some sort of water table to handle the dry conditions. But this was a free campsite, and I just set up, and it was great stars. Any questions, or people have questions about the sun exposure for several days? Some people will cover themselves in like mineral-based sunscreen and apply multiple times per day. I really hate that. It's just super greasy, and your clothes get gross from it as well. I tend to wear long pants and long sleeves most of the time, just really lightweight sun gear. And I do that rather than cover everything with sunscreen. My helmet has a visor. I have tried this thing called the Brim, which is a bigger visor, which works great on slow rail trail riding, but not great on faster road touring. But it's a mix of some sunscreen, but mostly just coverage for me. So that's a good question. One time I had a tick bite. I had Lyme disease, so I had the bullseye rash from a tick bite right at the beginning of a tour, and they put me on antibiotics, doxycycline, for 2 weeks, which makes you extremely sun sensitive. So I was extremely sun sensitive for 2 weeks on a bike tour at the beginning of the tour. So I had to extra cover myself with sunscreen. I ended up just wearing my floppy hat instead of a helmet every day because I was so sun sensitive, and even just the tips of my fingers, even with sunscreen on them, swelled up like little Vienna sausages from being out in the sun. So that's the extreme of sun exposure with a sun sensitivity antibiotic in the mix. That was just not common story. But if you do get a bullseye rash, that's another danger, right? Animals, some of them are insects that bite you and give you weird diseases. So know about those. Lyme disease, get a tick bite, look for that bullseye rash. You may also just go to a quick clinic and tell them you were bit by a tick, and they'll give you doxycycline as a prophylactic. Any other questions or anybody raising their hand? Or just speak up. I'm going to try the get off the couch thing. Let's see if that does any better, Connie. Mostly I say, you're just a good boy. You're doing so good. And then I spray them in the face. Rain gear. Aha. I have a rain jacket. I sometimes bring rain pants with me. I don't wear the rain pants as often because they're kind of heavy and don't breathe well. The rain jacket also doesn't breathe great. Like most rain gear, even if it's breathable, doesn't breathe well. So if you're riding, you almost sweat as much inside of it as it keeps the rain off of you. It's nice to have a rain jacket and rain pants for like a short rainstorm. But if it's not cold and it's raining all day, sometimes I'll just be wet for the whole day, or I choose not to ride. Or for if it's a 2-hour storm, I'll sit under a picnic shelter for the length of the storm. Train or plane. I'm going to finish rain gear for a sec. Shoes are the most annoying thing for me for rainy riding. So that's why I carry the sandals and have some pedals that also work okay without my clip-in shoes. So I'll wear sandals on rainy days. And all of my stuff is quick dry. So if it does get wet, I can hang it up and it won't be terrible the next day. I haven't done a lot of plane transport for my bike. That's particularly a pain. But I have done rail transport. It's nice that Amtrak stops here in Indy. You can get up to Chicago and pretty much get to anywhere. You can get to DC on the Amtrak. The sad thing about Indianapolis is that only runs 3 days a week. So it's hard to plan around. But getting your bike onto the Amtrak is easy. You just ride up to the Amtrak station with your gear on your racks, get a bike ticket. It's $20 with your ticket. You take the bike on the platform back to the baggage car. You take your bags up. You hand your bike, no disassembly needed, to the Amtrak person. They hang it on a hook or lean it against the wall in their baggage car, and you reverse that when you pick it up. So you can take your gear, your bags into the car with you. So I've done it that way. I like that. I wish there was more frequent train service here in Indy, and I would do that more. But for plane, it's particularly important when you get your bike packed for a plane trip that it's done professionally, either professionally by yourself or professionally by somebody who does it a lot. And then if you don't feel comfortable, you have to figure out how to get it to somebody to do the assembly when you're getting it off the plane, depending on how far they had to disassemble it to get it in the box. So for the Amtrak stuff, it's gone great, other than it's not frequent. For plane stuff, the disassembly part can be a challenge. Some people will just get their bike disassembled at a bike shop, bike flights, ship it to a bike shop where they're going to ride, and then have that bike shop do the assembly, and they just get there, taking an Uber or Lyft to the bike shop, and the bike's ready to go when they start. So any other questions from our audience or anybody curious about the August 2nd trip? Or any of the topics you would like me to share more about? And if Jim's listening and nobody's asking questions, I'm going to ask Jim what he thought about the Erie Canal Trail from Albany or Buffalo to Albany, because he just did that one. And go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's the wrong Jim.
Oh, it's another Jim. I thought that was Jim.
Sorry.
Thought it was the other Jim. All
I got
right.
really excited. I actually had most of those rides you were talking about on my bucket list, so I was like, "Hey, cool!" But no, different Jim.
Those are great ones. There's one that I want to do, the Greenbrier Trail, which starts from White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, and that is on the Amtrak route, but the Amtrak won't let you access the baggage car there. So you can't take your bike off, so they won't let you check a bike on Amtrak to White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. So that's on my bucket list of cool routes, super rural, free camping that I want to do. And I could probably continue right up to Cumberland, Maryland, and then finish in DC. But my challenge there is that I won't be able to take the Amtrak. So I may do like a DC to Cumberland and then ride south on the Greenbrier Trail. And then I'll just ship my bike back home rather than put it on the Amtrak. So, and I have a question in here. Have you used a hub dyno for power? I have not. Some people do. Hub dynos are pretty reliable, but they are a drag all the time. And the power output from a hub dyno is not that different from running a solar panel. And the solar panel can charge while you're not even moving. So I have a little 5-watt solar panel that sits over top of my front bags and rack, and I use that instead. So I don't use a dyno, particularly just because of the power loss. It's like another drag when you're already doing a lot of work hauling that weight. So that's why I went with a solar panel with a battery instead. Now I see Connie's comment on the Greenbrier River Trail. It's very big rocks for the gravel trail. So sounds like it's important to use wider tires and lower tire pressure for that one. I have so many bike touring stories. It's hard to say what the most memorable is. And lots of them are they're great over beer. One of my favorites, just a goofy one. I rode through Philadelphia on the day that the Pope was there, and Philadelphia is a very Catholic town, so they like shut down the city. The city was just literally shut down, and so I rode through the city pretty quickly, and all the Philly people were in the streets just partying, which is what you would do when the Pope comes to visit. So it's a rolling street party. And I made it through the city pretty quickly. And I had expected to try and find a hotel or something, but I made it through the city so early that I needed to find something north of the city. So I had my eyes on this city park that was behind a prison north of the city. And I figured nobody would bother me in this prison adjacent city park. But that park was closed because the Pope was visiting the prison like that day or the day before. So just from a security standpoint, they'd closed off the park and closed the gates. So I could not physically get in. So I was traveling further north from Philly, feeling kind of desperate. It was getting dark, and it's harder to find a campsite in the dark. So I aimed for the next campground, or not campground, but like state park, which was along the Delaware River, 10 miles further north. And I just kind of hoofed it to there. At one point, I dropped onto a multi-use trail under an interstate, and there was a like teen party with 2 kegs and music underneath the highway. And as I rode through, they were like, bike guy, do you want a beer? So I stopped and had a beer with the partying teenagers. And they said that I could have a beer as long as they were allowed to yell chug, chug, chug. And then I realized I hadn't gotten a picture of this moment. So I said, can I have a second beer? And they said, yes. So we did that again. And then I realized I needed to leave because it was teenagers and kegs. And I was the only person above 21 there. and I did not want to catch a charge. So I said, I got to go. And they offered that I could do a keg stand next. And I said, that's a great offer. Thanks, friends. I'm leaving. And then I camped next to the Delaware River, kind of stealth camped, tucked along a wood line right at the edge of the high water mark. And I learned that it was the high water mark and that the Delaware River is tidal because in the morning I woke up and the water was literally lapping against the bottom of my tent where my feet were. And I created a new rule about tidal rivers and how far I should camp away from them. So that's like one short goofy story. And that's like a day in the life of a bike tourist. So Pope Day, chugging beers under a bridge, and then camping too close to a tidal river. I've not done Europe bike touring. I've done some Canadian touring in Quebec and Ontario. I have did 5 days in Nicaragua, which was wild. I don't know that I'd recommend that, but it was super cool experience. Quebec was chill. Ontario was very chill. Canadian drivers are like just way more relaxed. Like they don't want to kill you. They seem to pay attention. I don't know what's wrong with American drivers. So I don't have a lot of European experience. What I've heard from folks who have toured in Europe is that there's a lot more bike infrastructure in general. And therefore, both the infrastructure and being more likely for people to see people biking on the roads and on trails, it's a better culture for it. And I don't have a next big bike tour planned other than this short one-nighter. I figured with the new CIBA Bike Indianapolis job, I don't have a extended bike tour for another year or so before I figure out how this job goes to get things in order with the merger. But I'm thinking about those next tours. I would like to do to Trans-Canada, so the coast-to-coast Canadian route. It's very rural. And I would like to do Mexico to Central South America as a 6-month tour. Try and do it all in one chunk. Maybe ride there so I'm in shape by the time I get to Mexico. But then I'd also need that time to improve my Spanish. So those are my like long tour bucket list. But that any other questions? We're getting close to the end here. And the August 2nd, we'll send you an email. Stay tuned. It'll be in the Bike Indianapolis CIBA newsletter as well. And if you know of anyone else who might be interested, please share that with them. We will have a limit on how many people can go because of the number of people that will fit into campgrounds. So I'm excited to do that as a short tour. And gear. One thing that people do is they assume that their car camping gear is good for bike and hike camping. Car camping gear is not made to be lightweight or compact. So if you have purchased a tent or you have a bulky sleeping bag, kind of like Sears or Craftsman or those car camping equipment type gear, it doesn't work great for tent camping. So the things that if you're putting together a kit for actually carrying your own gear and camping, you're going to want to look for hiker biker type stuff or a hiking camp, like a backpacking tent, a backpacking sleeping bag. So those lighter weight and more compact options are very different from what you might purchase to put in the trunk of a car, just from a space and weight standpoint. So that is something I see some early, like when folks first do this, they grab car camping gear and can't fit it in their bags, or they're way overloaded and have 80 pounds of gear when really you should be carrying no more than 35, 40 pounds of gear on your bike to do like overnight camping. So any other thoughts or questions? Cool. Well, that's all I've got. The link to sign up for the CIBA Bike Indianapolis newsletter is in the chat right now. So you can click on that before we leave. And remember, the night ride is on June 28th. If you could volunteer, that'd be awesome. If you know people that would like to ride, including yourself, that would be awesome too. So please spread the word. And thanks for joining us for this Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Tony, and thanks everyone for coming. Like Tony said, I'll put this recording and his slides on the Lunch and Learn webpage, as well as links that were in the chat. But thank you very much for this informative. Hopefully people will be excited about going bike camping and test it out.
Well, campsites are rented. I just did that this morning.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. See
Yeah,
you
everybody.
next month, or hopefully next week at our active transportation meetup.
All right. See you in the morning next week. Bye.
Bye.